This is my favorite thing. I found this action figure from The Fifth Element.
Ooh. Oh yeah,
That
that's from the reaction line.
Zorg. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's ghetto as hell looking, but
Yes.
it was the most amusing. It was at Barnes and Noble for like $1, so
Yes.
I couldn't say no to it. So I bought this thing. There's all sorts of glare on it, but look how bobo this thing is.
Yeah, no, no. What their whole concept of the reaction line is to create figures from, cult figures from
Yeah,
cult movies and stuff, but they look like old Star Wars Kenner's action figures.
yeah. Like the ones on the
So
back of the packaging are just like
nice.
why?
Leave the downfall to pass.
I need to find that Ruby Rod one because that is just too entertaining.
So I know I have a bunch of Funkos, but this is one of my favorite right here.
Oh, nice.
You can never go wrong with Buffy Summers
Never. She's a good lady.
and the Black Spider-Man.
Oh, nice. You mean not Venom?
Not Venom. Symbiote
Clearly
Spider-Man.
not Venom.
Not Venom.
Dude, dude. Getting rid of phone number. Ah! I really need to figure out a way for Google to stop doing that to me. Every time there's a calendar event, like the entire web browser pops up over whatever I'm
Yes.
doing. I need a monitor dedicated just for that so that it stops bothering me.
Brent does.
Brent has a computer for every occasion.
That's okay. I have a Funko Spider-Man for every occasion.
That's pretty good too. And I don't know, I got some other stuff. I got a creepy goat mask up over there. There's some collectibles from stuff over there. I got a big Ren and Stimpy poster over here. It's my pride and joy.
Happy, happy, joy, joy.
My Ren and Stimpy poster. Brings me to a happy place when I go over and look at it. I don't know. Stuff. I'm waiting for a toolbox so I can get rid of this cardboard box of tools sitting next to me.
Oh, nice.
Hidden. All sorts of boring stuff.
I did put something new up this week.
Whoa.
It's
The
a
big W.
flag.
That's a weird looking E. Are you Greek? Are you joining the fraternity?
It's weird. It's an M. It's so weird. The M flag.
Is that mom or wow?
It's W. It's a win.
Careful, that's a
Flying
gang
over-
sign in some places.
Yes, it's flying over Wrigley right now because we won last night.
Woohoo!
101, baby. 101.
Good for you. Hey, it could be a Sox Cubs thing this year. And look, Red
Which
Sox, they're
horrifies
getting
me.
close to wrapping stuff up.
Horrifies me
It
because
should.
Boston is just lights out over the past 2 weeks, past month.
Yeah. Their
Really bad.
bullpen finally figured out how to pitch, and it's terrifying to everyone.
Oh my gosh.
Because usually that's like everything falls. I remember so many times when I was a kid, I'd be sitting there, or even into adulthood, until I moved the heck out of that rat hole of a city called Boston. I would be sitting there watching Sox games with friends, and we'd all be pretty drunk. And it would be like, sixth, seventh, eighth inning, and
Because you
or
have
even
to
the
be.
ninth inning, and we'd be like, yeah, we got this, 52-run lead. It's never going to beat us. And then, bullpen would come in, specifically this one dude, Tavares, would come in, and he could blow any
Wait.
lead. Julian Tavares.
Julio Tavares, was that his
Yeah,
name?
Julio
Yeah.
Tavares, yeah.
He used to play for the Cubs.
Yeah. That guy could blow leads like nobody's business. He, like 12-run leads, and he'd just be sitting there like, screw it, I don't care anymore.
Hey, that's okay. My dad and I were flashing texts back and forth that it's the bottom of the ninth. We bring in this guy called Grimm, and he gives up 3 runs, and then we're just going back and forth like, they just taken him out like 2 batters ago. What the heck is going on? This guy's crazy. He's not on the playoff roster.
Get him out of here.
Oh, just so you know, Brent Ozar will be coming in today. So drop your
Yes.
questions.
Yes. So ask all your replication questions later for Brent. Now, so Brent can get to them later.
So
All
we'll
right,
give you
guys.
answers. Brent will give you correct answers. So
Yes. That is basically the gist of it. All right, it is 12:15, so I'm fixing to start asking some questions. Whoever wants to answer them can answer them. The first one we have up is from someone named Lori. It says, can I create a non-clustered index on a partition table? Does anyone have an opinion on this? Tara looks like she's concentrating, so I'll go
I'm
ahead
trying to
and
figure out
say,
the slides still.
yeah, no problem. So yes, you can. You can absolutely create many non-clustered indexes on partition tables, but you're going to want to make sure that you align them to the partitioning scheme, or else you will lose all of the magic management stuff that comes out of partitioning your table. You won't be able to swap in or swap out or do any of the other cool stuff. So when you create your non-clustered indexes, make sure that you don't create them on primary. Make sure you create them on whatever the partition scheme is called. And
I actually worked on a system where we didn't intentionally align them with the partition.
Yeah. You're crazy.
Yeah, because partition swapping wasn't something that we really needed. We just needed the data partition so that we could query it better. So.
Why didn't you just create a partition view then?
I didn't. This is I came in, and they already had all that stuff. And they're talking. I mean, some of these tables were like 5-6 billion rows.
That's it.
So they just said, for size perspective, getting on different drives and stuff, they did the partitioning.
All right. So I will consider that one answered. I don't want to right-click on anything there. Angie asks, which R session are you most excited about seeing at Summit? The third one.
The Star Trek one over at the EMP, that's probably the one that I'll be heading off to.
Whichever one is the quietest when I have a hangover in the morning. Whichever one has the comfiest seats.
Since when did the Pass Summit turn into the R Summit? That's what I want to know.
As soon as Pass started being Pass and stopped being the professional blah, 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 blah. Words that I somehow can't pronounce at my tender age of 950. All right, maybe in left field. I don't know. Who plays left field for the Cubs?
Depends on the day. Usually Jorge Soler.
Yeah, who else is on that?
Bryant plays some left field. Chris Coghlan played last night. Caesar was in there as well.
Who else? Who's good? Who's your favorite left fielder?
Moises Alou from the early 2000s.
Wow, that's a weird one. Where'd that come from? What did he do?
He almost caught the Bartman ball.
Okay. Little biased. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, maybe in left field. Can PowerShell integrate with SQL Azure databases? I don't know because I have never touched Azure, but I see a lot of stuff about Azure and CLI and whatever. So I assume that there's some integration. How deep it is and how effective it will be depends on your ability to stare at dollar signs and periods for long periods of time.
I concur.
Yes. Brent
and write unit tests for your PowerShell too.
He just flew in, and boy, are his arms
pale.
Boy, are his arms.
All right, what did I miss?
We're having a really high energy office hours. There are 3 or 4 questions. It was one about partitioning.
Uh-oh. Have we started asking? Shall I be MC or is someone playing MC today?
Oh, I was asking, but I don't care if you want to ask. You're better at it than I am.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. All right, fine. You get to answer some questions.
I get to answer, yes.
All right. Here's one just for you. Then I'm going to tee this one up for you. Having an issue with SPN, SSPI across domains. It works in each domain, but not across the two-way trust.
Man, I was literally just on site at a client in Omaha yesterday, and they were running into this. Yeah, and what we'll do is I'll post a blog post because I never remember how to do this either. And I just link to, if you search for set SPN and then SQL University Advanced Training Week. SQL University Advanced Training Week and then set SPN. There's a blog post by Robert Davis. Another set of search terms you could use is SQL Soldier. Robert Davis is an MCM who has step-by-step instructions on how you go about fixing that, which is good because I never, ever, ever remember it. I mean, ever.
Yeah, I ran into that, back in the bad old days, and it was always like an adventure for me to fix. Like the DOS commands. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do it for the domain, and then for the server without the domain, and it's the whole thing.
And then depending upon the version, sometimes it was the port, sometimes it was the instance
Yeah.
name.
Yeah,
It
clusters
was not
making
groovy.
Yeah, total
Not
pain in the
groovy
rear.
at all.
And don't feel bad if you don't know whoever's asking. Don't feel bad if you don't remember because no one ever remembers this. It's a hard pain in the rear.
Yeah. All right. We have one from a fellow named Jason. It said, when you worked with our organization, you suggested our production transaction DB start out with the settings of maxstop 8 and cost threshold 50 to use 8 tempdb files, then modify accordingly. Do you recommend that same setup for servers dedicated to only reporting services? And what about data warehouse databases? We are on SQL Server 2014.
I'll take the data warehouse one just because I'm like, well, if any query is going to be a data warehousing kind of query, it's going to be large anyway. It's going to blow past the cost threshold of 50. You may still have some tiny queries on there that are like inserting, updating, and deleting small number of rows, but they're not likely going to cross over that 50 threshold. So I still like the 50 threshold. Same thing with the number of tempdb data files. Servers dedicated SSRS, that's kind of tricky. Do you mean they're just running the engine, or are they running reporting queries for SSRS? Or if they're just like servicing as the SSRS database where they're holding the report server DB and report server temp DB, in which case those queries are going to be kind of small and you wouldn't want them to go parallel either. So I kind of get, I still would stick with the same numbers. How about you guys?
I would say, just because how the question was posed, it makes me think that they do have the reporting services service and the databases, the report server and report server tempdb databases on the same server. And if that's the case, the best practice is to separate them. So our recommendations is for the SQL Server instance, and it could be that report server and report server tempdb are on that instance. So that's where our recommendations are for. It's for the SQL Server instance. Once you start getting into all these other services, those should be on another box.
Like it.
Groovy. All right, we have a question from a fellow human about dynamic SQL. It says, I set my string to an varchar max, but I am only seeing 4,000 characters. Is there a way around this?
I should make you answer this because you're like Mr. Dynamic SQL.
Fine. Yes, there are ways around it. The trouble is that Management Studio can only print so many characters. So your string is probably longer than that. What you're going to need to do is do some substrings of your string. So you need to do from 0 to 4,000 and from 4,000 to 8,000 and from blah, 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 blah. Because you are using in varchar max, you can only print the 4,000 because it's Unicode. If you're using varchar max, you can print 8,000, but that might screw you up when you try to do SP execute SQL. Because you're doing dynamic SQL, I expect you're using SP execute SQL and not just exec, because that would be naughty. So that's how I usually get around it. You're gonna have to print out substrings, figure out so what I usually do is I take the length of the string, like I get the actual length of it, and then I just divide that into chunks of 4,000, and I get the substring of each 4,000 chunk and print that out. And that usually works.
Like it.
Another trick that sometimes works is if you select the thing for XML path, SQL can sometimes print out more XML than yeah.
Wow!
Yeah,
well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it doesn't always work because sometimes you have some weird characters in your dynamic SQL that
Sure. Less than or greater than.
Yeah, they don't really fancy printing in the XML, but if you have like a pretty generic string, you can do the for XML path trick and select your thing as that, and it will print out magically a whole mess of characters.
Oh, I love it.
I don't, but it sometimes works. One thing that I found out, this is sort of on topic for this, so I'm going to say it here, is that if you're using dynamic SQL and you are using in varchar max and you are concatenating like chunks together, so it's like you have a dynamic block and then like something else and then a dynamic block, it's really important that you preface each of those blocks with the capital N, or else they get converted down to nvarchar 4000s from nvarchar max, so it'll actually sort of implicitly truncate your code. And I found that out the hard way. I was working on some stuff in Blitzverse, so be very careful with that as well.
It's also not really good in terms of performance. Like if you're continuously adding on small pieces of the string together in SQL Server is not particularly quick at that. The longer the string gets, the worse it gets.
We're living proof.
Yeah. We build SP Blitz Cache is a huge amount of dynamic SQL and then search and replace in the dynamic SQL, and it's genuinely hard to work on, so we feel your pain.
All right, we have a question from Paul, not a fellow human. Which planet are you from, Paul? My team just moved our production SQL Server VM from one machine to another. During the move, we also applied server updates. Everything tested as successful. Today, I found the job replication monitoring refresher for distribution running for over 24 hours. It is hanging and is on the SP REPL. Tara, take it away.
Yeah. I've actually never seen that occur. I assume that you tried to stop it, and maybe you couldn't get it to stop. Did you try killing the SPID? I've never encountered that issue. I've used replication for a few years.
All right, so we are undecided on that one, Paul. Sorry about that.
We would probably give the crappy answer of restart the SQL Server instance, see what happens again, and if it happens twice in a row, then open a support ticket with Microsoft.
You can also try restarting just the agent, since that's not going to affect the databases at least. Just make sure that if you do that, you check what's running, and if you have like a rebuild index job, you don't want that to stop, because that'll cause a large transaction to roll back possibly.
That's so cool. What you got there, Brent?
Those of you who are only on the audio will not be able to see this. Those of you on YouTube will be able to see I have laptop skins and iPad skins for the icons that we have from Pace the Plan. And so I was wondering how they were going to turn out. They are just completely and utterly gorgeous. So I will send you guys the links on how to order these. You guys meaning the team. I guess we could send them to the public too.
We can make magnets out of them.
We could. Oh my God! So you could, dude, that's genius. So then you could like put them on your fridge and build your own execution plan. Erick, that is utterly genius.
You know what? We should put our team member faces in just throughout those
Same
as
side.
well.
Yep. I love it. We're totally doing that.
Hey, I got hired because I'm an idea man. All right, let's see here. Any recommendations on solving SPN issue? Yes, we had several on that. Let's see, we have another fellow human. I thought I saw a sale on the SQL Perf tuning 4-day class last week, but it's gone this week. It's probably a secret, but when is the next big sale?
It's really neat how sales work. They expire, and then if you don't buy in time, they go boom, they're gone. So our next big sale, and really the only big sale through the rest of the year, will be the Black Friday sale. So on Black Friday, and I always forget what the day is. It's in November. It's the first Friday after Thanksgiving. We will be running huge 50% off sales on the training classes. In the past, we've run $1 sales, like you've been able to get one seat in a class for $1. And we may still do those. It'll be like a midnight doorbusters type thing, but through the rest of the day, we'll have a limited number of seats in the classes for 50% off. So instead of being $39.95, they'll be like $2,000.
Word up. Okay, we have a fellow human who asks if we have any experience with cross-cluster migrations. Is it okay to go from SQL 2012 to 14 or 16, and would there be any problems with replication?
That's a very complicated question there. So is a person asking that they have two clusters and they're going to be migrating the databases between the two clusters? Is that what that is asking?
I bet that's what they're doing.
Because it doesn't really matter that there's clustering involved. The migration is really still the same as far as SQL Server goes. And would there be any problems with replication? Did you test it? I don't have any issues with replication when I've moved from one version to the next. You just have to reset it up and get everything in place.
And that's a great point. So say that you're moving from 2012 to 2016 or 2014 to 2016. When you're thinking through that, because Tara, you've done this a bunch of times, when you're thinking through a move from one server to another, one cluster to another, whether there's replication involved or not, how do you go about building another environment and testing out your plan?
Question mark.
Oh, that was you, Tara.
Oh, I thought it was a rhetorical question.
No.
Tara's like, it's the same process for any project application release. I mean, everything. I don't necessarily build out a plan. I just go through the same setup that I do with any new instance. Because if you're setting up a new cluster, a new SQL instance, I have the same set of steps that I go through really. And maybe on the cluster, I have a couple extra things that I need to check. But as far as an upgrade, I do the same process every single time. It doesn't matter if there's clustering, doesn't matter if there's replication involved. Now, replication, I might need to research to see if it's supported. The distributor database is supported on whatever version that I'm on, and is it cluster aware? Can it go into a developer cluster instance? Can it be part of an availability group? That type of thing. But as far as my steps, it's the same steps as always, really. I do backup and restore, and I prep the database ahead of time. Using no recovery, full backup maybe a day before the migration, differential, no recovery maybe a few hours beforehand, and then I start applying logs. That way when I'm ready for the production, the actual maintenance window, I just have to apply maybe 1 or 2 transaction logs, and I'm basically done at that point. So downtime can be just a couple minutes even.
Yeah. One thing that, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, so one thing that I noticed with, I don't know if this helps you, I don't know if this is applicable for you, but one thing that I saw that's kind of cool with Windows Server 2016 is that they have the concept of a rolling upgrade for the whole cluster. So the cluster will exist on the older versions until you have all of the cluster nodes on the same Windows version, and then you can use a PowerShell doodad to upgrade them all at once. So I don't know if that makes things easier, if it doesn't apply to you, but I did see it out there, and it is something to think about if you're out there in the world and you need to upgrade a cluster.
Yeah, you should think about building out the new cluster on whatever new version of SQL Server it is. Fail it over back and forth. Test your maintenance jobs. Test how long they take. Do load testing against your storage. Really kick the tires on it really hard. Go through our setup guide. Just to make sure that you've gone through all the steps to set up a SQL Server correctly. If you go to the homepage of BrentOzar.com, scroll all the way to the bottom, and there's an email box. You can just put in your email and get our first responder kit. Has the exact same setup checklist that we use when we're building new SQL Server instances, which I have to go update because it has a couple of things in there that I'm like, oh, I'm not especially proud of that. It has what's the partition alignment? Partition alignment is not an issue anymore. Yeah, that I can take that stuff out.
Yeah. Cool. All right. We have a question from another fellow human. Thank goodness. A new index I created helps a specific query drop from 15 minutes down to less than 1 second. Yay! However, the new index does not appear in the execution plan. I even tried dropping and recreating the index, and the performance differences are still there. Why is this?
I bet you had a bad execution plan at the time. At the time that you were getting a really slow query, it was taking 15 minutes. And when you added a new index, it just caused SQL Server to go build a new execution plan with whatever parameters you happen to pass in. Once it has that execution plan, great, life goes right on. But you may be a victim of something called parameter sniffing. In a perfect world, I wish you would have caught the bad plan initially and saved it. If you catch the bad plan initially and save it, if you right-click on the select statement or insert, update, delete, whatever it is, in the plan, right-click on it and click properties. Over in the properties window, you can see what parameters it was built for. That was probably what caused the slow execution plan. Now, if you don't have the plan anymore, it's kind of tough to figure this out, but that also means that it may strike again at some point. Whenever the query is slow again, make sure to save that execution plan. Then you'll be able to compare the two and see if it's, for example, an issue with parameter sniffing.
One other possibility, and something that I've seen, is that if the index you created was unique, SQL can sometimes use that additional information about a column to come up with a better plan for something. So it can say, oh, I'm not going to use this index, but there is a unique index, and then, so I know that this column is unique, so I do things far differently than I would if I have a column that I'm not sure is unique or not.
The fellow human follows up with, there are no parameters, it's just an ordinary query. SQL Server may be parameterizing the query for you. SQL Server will auto-parameterize a query and turn your literals out into variables too. Oh, there's a question in there about how do you guys feel about employment opportunities in the current market? Did you guys tackle that before I came in?
No, that came up when we were asking other stuff.
Yeah, so how do you guys feel about employment opportunity in the current market? SQL Server seems less in demand than AWS. So it's kind of like anything else with supply and demand, right? If there's no supply for it, it seems like, oh my gosh, this job is amazing, just like with analytics right now. Oh my God, we really need someone with 10 years of experience in analytics. That's because there's only 4 people in the world with that level of experience. AWS, it's the same thing. Everybody who is going in AWS wants to find the 5 people in the world with 10 years of AWS experience. There just aren't that many. And so there's a temporary gold rush. It's just like when we went to go start to build applications, we wanted someone with 10 years of good experience building enterprise apps. We couldn't find them, so we had to settle for Richie instead. Sometimes you're just kind of stuck. But the SQL Server jobs are still phenomenal. I mean, it's still a really good market. I was just at this other client, and they've been hiring DBAs for a while and can't get good experienced people where they're at.
I think it depends on where you're at. I know in San Diego, SQL Server jobs are booming right now. I mean, the number of recruiters contacting me it's getting I don't know, annoying right now. So there are just a lot of SQL Server DBA jobs in San Diego right now, and unfortunately the amount of DBAs in San Diego is not very many as compared to the number of jobs. And not just DBAs, SQL Server developer jobs, there's a lot of BI. There's just a ton of SQL Server jobs right now in San Diego, just not enough people to fill those positions.
And today was born the Tara Kaiser Employment Agency.
Yeah.
All the recruiters listening to this podcast are like, quick, get her
now! Well, my 2 cents on that is I hope I don't have to find out anytime soon. That's all I got to say about that.
Yep. Yep, I'm in that boat.
All right.
It's not like I'm telling recruiters to contact me, just to make it clear. I am happy
sure. There's out there on Monster, Dice, LinkedIn. Please rescue me. I'm tired of being in this house.
All right. We have a question from Alexandra. Last name I'm not going to try to pronounce because I don't want to appear insensitive. Sorry, not a DBA here. Is it good practice to do backups from many different production servers on one network share? If so, should we use network service for service accounts on production servers and add permissions for network service on the share?
Oh, that's such a good question.
I don't like using the network service for the services in the first place. I like a domain account that does not have local admin on the box. Use a domain account and then grant that account the access to the network share. Now, you could do the network service, and I think that when you add the permissions to the network share, you just have to add the computer account, which is the server name $, I believe. So you can do it that way, but I prefer a domain account.
Agreed. And is there a performance bottleneck with doing backups from multiple SQL servers to a single network share at the same time? Sure, it can be whatever the throughput is on that network share on the other end. Sometimes I see people will back up to one NetApp, like they'll have one NetApp file share that has all kinds of capacity and performance, and they're able to do a whole lot of backups without really getting overwhelmed. Then also I'll see people backing up to like a toaster NAS that has 2 hard drives in it, and it simply goes to USB thumb drive speeds when you try to do multiple writes simultaneously. What you can do is you can map a drive to whatever that network share is and use the tool Crystal Disk Mark. If you search for Crystal Disk Mark on our blog, we've got several articles on how to use it, and you can run one test from one server, then run several tests at the same time from several different servers, and you'll see what the throughput looks like. Then maybe it's a network bottleneck, maybe it's a disk bottleneck underneath, then your performance tuning adventure starts over on whatever's managing the backup share. But is it something that we generally recommend? Totally. I always want to have people back up off the box. If your backup requires the SQL Server's Windows operating system to be up, it's not really a backup. Sometimes I'll see people will back up locally and then copy the files off elsewhere. I often see those same people get kind of incompetent with their shell scripts, and they don't actually copy the files off that often. So just back up straight to UNC path and call it a day.
That's a wrap. All right. A fellow human says, speaking of domain accounts, thoughts on running SQL as the built-in service account versus a domain account, and why?
Why? I'm with Tara. I'm a huge fan of using domain accounts because often I want to grant permissions to the service account to go do something, like go access this file share, or it's always go access this file share.
XP command shell.
XP command shell, yes. And so it's just so much easier with a domain account as opposed to using a local system.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like some stuff still works. Like, you can grant the built-in accounts instant file initialization the same way you grant a domain account that. But the question for me is always like, like what else is this server? Like, where else does this server have to get to? What else does it have to do? I'd rather have a domain account that I can, be in control of and all the other stuff. It's like not a domain admin, not a local admin. Doesn't have too many permissions where it shouldn't. I want to be able to control that sort of stuff, and the domain accounts make that a bit easier.
There's some kind of deal too with Kerberos authentication in an always-on availability group. All the SQL servers in the same availability group have to use the same domain service account if you want Kerberos authentication to work. Mm-hmm. At this point, I might as well be a meat puppet that's being voiced by someone else, because that's literally, I know to parrot that sentence, and that's all I know. Like, then I go hit books online if I want to learn more.
Yep, and like part of the domain account thing is that they have to have special delegation privileges, and they have to be able to set and reset SPNs and stuff like that to make the switchovers easy, and make sure you don't run into the SPN, SSPI stuff that sometimes people run into. So, I like that.
Yeah.
Anyone else like that?
I like that a lot. I like it. You're not alone. We love you. I'm just over here playing with my paste the plan icon sheets. That's all. Beautiful icon sheets.
I'm totally listening to you. I'm not distracted at all. All right. Real question from Angie, whoever that is.
Who is she?
Some chick who just keeps showing up. I don't know. All right. Any reason you should split TempDB data files? We've got 8, but split across 2 drives on a hosted VM, so I don't know the actual drive layout. What y'all think?
In edge cases for certain storage controllers, certain storage vendors will actually tell you to do this. Dell Compellent, so when we were back at Dell DBA days, Compellent told us something interesting, that you wanted to create one volume for every controller that the Compellent had. So if the Compellent had 2 controllers, you would create 2 volumes and put half your files on one and half on the other in order to maximize your throughput. Generally, on a VM, you don't usually hit bottlenecks that hard, but I wouldn't have any problem whatsoever if someone chose to do that. That would be completely fine.
She says the writes are horrible, so I'm thinking that's not the case.
Yeah, and you can test it usually with like Crystal Disk Mark. Go just test it with plain old Crystal Disk Mark, and usually it's that the underlying storage is crappy, so it's not really helping you anything to stripe it across 2 drives.
Are the reads also horrible, or is it just the writes? That'd be my next question.
Oh, I like it.
Because I did horribly write also a blog post about caching. So I would check also the kind of caching that you have for the SAN that those drives are sitting on, because certain kinds of caching can have write impact, and especially for things like TempDB where you're writing away, the cache can, if it's like right through, I forget. That's why I wrote it down, so I didn't have to remember it. So certain kinds of SAN caching can bonk things.
The other thing I would throw out there too is there's a service pack. If you search for TempDB less eager writes on our site, TempDB less eager writes, there's a service pack and cumulative update for 2012, and I think it's just built in the box in 2014, where it writes less frequently to disk, so you'll get a bonus. Holy cow, she says it's 5,000 milliseconds for writes. Whoa! There's a little guy with a stone tablet on the other end of that network wire, like scribbling things down. 5 seconds. That's epically bad. Woo!
You have like one of those court transcriptionists in there.
That's pretty heinous.
Yeah. Wow. I would also look at like what I'm doing that's hitting TempDB to do that.
Yeah.
Like what's going in there and doing that right? It's weird.
Well, thanks everybody for hanging out with us this week. It was an enlightening half hour as always, and we will see you guys next week on Office Hours. Adios.
Adios.
Bye.